Thank you, Jeff the Fish. We are the Not Ready for E1 players. Next half hour, I'm going to make you a smarter fantasy football player and a much dumber person. Hey, it's Thursday. That means it's love-hate day. Plus, Adam Schefter coming by with all the latest intel for week number 14. And we preview tonight's Thursday night football game. But first, Secret Squirrel, today's show will be...
a time filler until college football live, Matthew.
That's how the network sees us. That's how the network sees us. Thursday night football, Saints and Falcons kicks off week 14 tonight, which means we've arrived at the official start of the fantasy playoffs at ESPN Standard Leagues. All right, now, so it is an important time to talk about playoff theory.
Hey, everybody, it's me, the paper bag of bad news. I'm a brown paper bag and I have bad news. Get it?
I'm sorry, what? Like, the bag of bad news? Like, that doesn't even make any sense. I can't believe I'm saying this, but where's the bear?
Hey, Matthew, so here's the thing. The puppets wanted to have a day off. They were complaining that, like, the Muppets only have to do, like, one movie a decade, but then they've got to work with you. Obviously, our puppets do, like, every single day.
Right.
So they wanted to take it off. But don't worry. We have some fill-in puppets from the temp agency, Pup Temp. They sent over some stuff. So we're just going to sort of have to work with what we got today.
Wow. You know, it's almost like the guy who does our puppets took a personal day.
Huh.
All right, but whatever. You have some bad news bag. Nice job with the arm. We can't even come. Will you can at least try to get behind me?
Yeah, it's that you're talking to a lunch bag on national TV. It's kind of sad, really.
You ain't lying. But not as sad as being eliminated from the fantasy playoffs. That's right. The guy who writes our awful segues did not take the day off. All right, so here's my official approach to the fantasy playoffs, right? The very same approach used by all the greatest dismissed 76ers executives. Trust the process. As my friend Joe Bryant likes to say, look, it's an oblong ball made of leather. Weird stuff's going to happen. Last week, Geno Smith outscored Tom Brady. Really? Neither guy was hurt. At its core, fantasy football is all about minimizing risk and putting yourself in the best position to win. That's it. That's simple. Trust the process. Case in point, say you have Jimmy Garoppolo and Drew Brees.
I have Jimmy Garoppolo and Drew Brees.
Of course you do. You clearly have been around a long time, Bag, and we're not just made this morning after a Whole Foods run. But I'll play along because I actually got this question on Twitter. Yes, Garoppolo looked good last week, and yes, he has a nice matchup this week, and yes, the Saints have gone run heavy this season, but whatever. You are still starting Drew Brees over Jimmy Garoppolo in his second start for the 49ers. It's the playoffs. Don't get cute. Start your studs. Don't overthink things. Trust the process. Of course, look, it won't always work. That's the bad news.
Bagging!
Long way to go for that one. But more often than not, it will work out. That's what we're doing. We're playing the odds here. And if you bench Brees and he goes off tonight, you're going to hate yourself. If you bench Garoppolo when he goes off, what are you going to do? Look, Blake Bortles was QB3 last week. Wacky stuff happens. But Brees over Garoppolo is going to be the right call a lot more often than not. Tonight's Saints-Falcons game on Thursday Night Football has huge playoff implications in the NFC, but we don't care about stupid real football on this show. We care about fantasy football. And you really couldn't get a bigger game to kick off the fantasy playoffs. There are a ton of fantasy-relevant players in action right off the bat. Drew Brees, Matt Ryan, Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, Julio Jones, Mohamed Sanu, Devontae Freeman, Tevin Coleman. Like your entire first-round playoff match, it could be decided tonight. So you got to make sure you have the right roster moves. First off, a couple players I'm not crazy about tonight. Austin Hooper of the Falcons, Ted Ginn of the Saints. Now, Hooper hasn't had more than 3 catches in a game since week 10, right? Saints actually pretty good against opposing tight ends. They're top 8 in terms of fewest fantasy points allowed to the position this season. Ted Ginn facing a Falcons defense that's allowed the fewest 20-yard passing plays in the league this entire year. Kind of Ginn's specialty. Ted Ginn, a boom or bust wide receiver 4 tonight.
Cut the bums.
Wait. What are you supposed to be?
I'm Sawman, of course. I cut bums. And that's what you should do to Hooper and Ginn.
I didn't say cut them. I just said be careful because I don't like their matchup. All right, let me do this. Let me give you a player I do like tonight. Obviously, you're starting Drew Brees, Alvin Kamara, Devontae Freeman, Julio Jones. Also, Mark Ingram. He needs to be in your lineup. He is slated to play tonight. And if you're considering starting Mohamed Sanu, I don't hate that idea. Wide receiver 32 on the season. He's actually available more than 20% of leagues, even though he put up more than 20 points just 2 weeks ago. It's a nice matchup with New Orleans. Saints, bottom 10 in the NFL in terms of yards per attempt, and completions to slot receivers, where Sanu lines up most of the time. And hey, there's always a chance he could throw for one. Sanu is a wide receiver 3 tonight. He's just inside my top 30. So depending on who else you have and how deep your league is, Mo Sanu could potentially help you be, wait for it, a cut above the competition. Like, not even good sawing motion. Like, can we have a rehearsal or something? Like, what's going on? So setting your lineup in the fantasy playoffs, it's all about limiting risk, right? You've made it this far. You obviously have star players on your roster. Gotta let them do their thing. Don't undercut their performances with risky plays elsewhere. Which brings me to Amari Cooper, Will Fuller, and Greg Olsen. All three of them returned from injury to practice this week. All three likely to be active for their NFL teams on Sunday. But should they be active for you? I'd certainly understand why you'd want them to be. Amari Cooper put up 44 fantasy points in Week 7 against the same Chiefs he faces on Sunday, right? And how about Will Fuller? From Weeks 4 through 8, he averaged 21 fantasy points per game, which made him wide receiver 2 over that period on a points per game basis. And Greg Olsen, he was drafted for the season as the 4th best tight end in fantasy. He's been a stud for a long time. But all of these guys, right? Cooper, Fuller, Olsen, they're risky for me. Yes, they definitely have upside, but they also have downside. And there's definitely potential that in their first game back from injury, they struggle. Their downside, bigger than their upside. And putting any of them in your lineup could potentially trap your fantasy team in a box. That's right, latest new temporary character, the world's only bearded mime. Could Cooper go for 44 points this Sunday? Of course he could. Anything's possible. But I'm here to tell you what is likely, okay? In the 6 weeks since that Cooper breakout performance, he hasn't put up 44 points total. And now, coming back from a concussion and dealing with an ankle injury on the road, he's merely a low-end wide receiver 3 for me. Same with Will Fuller. His breakout, remember, came with Deshaun Watson under center. Since Tom Savage came back, Fuller, wide receiver 96 on a points-per-game basis. San Francisco's actually played better defense recently. And look, I expect Houston to go run heavy here. So Fuller, a risky wide receiver 4, even if he returns from his rib injury on Sunday. Did you get that? All right, good. Good, mime. Listen, and finally, how about Greg Olsen, right? Still available in 16% of leagues. If you're desperate at tight end, sure, I get it. But we thought he was back in Week 12. Then he got 1 catch for 10 yards, left the game early, didn't play at all in Week 13. Now he's going against the Vikings defense that is top 8 in terms of fewest fantasy points allowed to opposing tight ends. Hasn't allowed a tight end score since Week 5. Is he healthy? Will he be productive? Even if Olsen is active for Carolina, we just haven't seen it. I like him for the rest of the playoffs, but this week he's just too risky for me as anything other than a tight end 2. He's outside my top 10. Remember, in the fantasy playoffs, you want players who can pull your team up, not down. Coming up next on the show, it is Love-Hate Day. I'll tell you who I love and hate in Week 14. Best of all, I won't have a conversation with a paper bag, hopefully.
Bums, they're nice and round. Hey!
LeBron.
Love!
Hate the bum. Jordan was better.
Love him to the point I start to fawn. And I speak, of course, of James, LeBron.
It's more like LeBald, am I right? Love that joke.
Hey!
Matthew Berry.
Good question. I'm gonna have to go with hate here.
Hate that bum.
Hate that guy, he's so calm!
Hate him, and I will destroy him.
Is he going to see this? He is? Okay, great. Hate. Hate.
Loving things.
LeBron.
Hate.
Hey!
Hating things.
The only thing I hate is this show.
Robots don't have emotions, so I want to destroy Matthew. I will be feeling nothing. I'm dead inside.
I don't hate anything outside of my exes, so I hate exactly 349 things.
Love it.
Wait, why am I being grouped in with puppets? All right, Matthew, time for our quarterbacks love-hate edition here for Week 14. First up, Phillip Rivers has been on fuego the last 2 weeks, taking on a Jekyll and Hyde Redskins defense. So is he a love for you or is he a hate?
He's a love. Back-to-back games with over 340 passing yards, a completion percentage above 70%. Since his Week 9 bye, Rivers, over 15 fantasy points per game every single game. That includes matchups against the Bills and the Jags. And then you think about the Redskins, who've allowed multiple passing touchdowns in 4 of the last 5 games. They're so beat up. Yeah, Rivers an easy top 10 play today. Who's next?
Next up, Cam Newton at home against a stout Vikings defense in Week 14. Is he a love or is he a hate?
Yeah, unfortunately, Cam's a hate. If you think about this Vikings defense, it has allowed the 6th fewest fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks this year. Last 5 games, Minnesota, just 3 passing touchdowns total they've given up, less than 220 passing yards per game. And then you also think about the ground. Vikings have allowed just 56 rushing yards total by quarterbacks this year. That's fewest in the NFL. Obviously, Cam gets a lot of his value. He's outside my top 10.
All right, Matthew Stafford, second in the NFL in passing yards, but dealing with an injury to his hand. Is he a love or is he a hate?
Yeah, I mean, I may change my mind by Sunday morning as we see how that injury progresses, but right now he's a love. Since Week 6, Stafford leading the NFL with 312 passing yards per game. Bucs have just been absolutely brutal on defense. They've allowed the 3rd most passing yards per game over the last 4 weeks. Only the Colts allowing more yards per attempt this season than the Buccaneers. I think Stafford has a big game on Sunday. Who's next?
Marcus Mariota has yet to have a 20-point performance this season going against a pretty weak Cardinals secondary. Is he a love or is he a hate?
Yeah, he's a hate. I don't know how you could possibly start him with any confidence this week. Look, after Mariota's return in Week 6, he's been quarterback 23 on a points-per-game basis. Like, literally not even a top 20 quarterback, and that includes games against Cleveland, Houston, Indy twice. Like, honestly, you're hoping for the rushing there, but the Cardinals actually very quietly 5th best against the pass over the last 4 weeks. Mariota is on the hate list this week. Who's next?
Next up, Case Keenum has had at least 17 fantasy points in each of the last 5 games, but it's a tough Panthers defense this week. Love or hate?
Yeah, at some point, I think you just got to trust in the guy's good. Honestly, hasn't been below 16.9 fantasy points in the last 5 games since Week 8. He's the 6th best quarterback in fantasy in total points, 11 touchdowns, just 3 picks in his last 5 games. Russell Wilson, Ben Roethlisberger, Carson Wentz, the only quarterbacks that have thrown for more. Panthers, by the way, 10th most fantasy points allowed to opposing quarterbacks this year. I don't think people realize that. So he is on the love list this week as well. You know, in the last 15 years, there's just been one rookie running back better than Alvin Kamara. It was Ezekiel Elliott last year. Make history. Presented by Jim Beam. This is how we make history. How will you make yours? You know what? We're going to be at the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami for our Week 14 Monday Night Football matchup when the Patriots face the Dolphins. Not you and I, Secret Squirrel, but other will be, including Monday Night Countdown, who kicks off our coverage at 6 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. Coming up on the show next, Adam Schefter stopping by to make us smarter. And with Strawman not on the show today, will Shefty start a dispute with Sawman? And will it have explosions? When your fantasy team is in the playoffs, one decision can be the difference between victory and the end of your season. So don't make a move without checking with IBM Watson first. Find the insights, master the risks and rewards. It's fantasy football with Watson. Thank you, me. Make Me Smarter is informed by IBM Watson, and checking out the players with the highest chance in Week 14. These are the most likely to beat their projections in a big this week. Watson loves Matt and Jared Goff and Jameis Winston chances there, Adam Schefter. Joining now, any of those quarterbacks jump out to you?
Well, Jared Goff is on one of my teams, so I'm always a big Jared Goff guy. And that offense with Sean McVay, you can never go wrong with him. That's the one guy that jumps out, of course.
Yeah, and interesting to see Garoppolo there. He gets a much easier
They
matchup.
like him in San Francisco.
As well, they should. All right, we asked a lot of people on Twitter to tweet us questions for you, Shefty. And Ty writes in, I have Ingram. What's your opinion on non-playoff teams using the waiver wire? I lost out on Alfred Morris to a guy playing for nothing and no next season implications. So what's your feeling on that? You play in a lot of fantasy leagues. You're a hardcore fantasy.
I like to have guys on winning teams, but productive backs are productive backs. And if Alfred Morris is going to get the carries for Dallas, you ride him. The only thing is Rod Smith going to get more work than Alfred Morris? That's the issue.
I like Alfred Morris quite a bit this week against the Giants. What about Ingram? What are you hearing about Mark?
He's going to play tonight.
Okay.
The toe, he's questionable, but you're not benching Mark Ingram at this point in the year. He got you this far. You're riding him to the end.
100%.
If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But you're sticking with Mark Ingram.
100%. If he's going to be active, he's
going
active
to be
for
active.
you. And in terms of this, Ty, in terms of the etiquette, if there's no rule against it, I like players playing to win, even if it's without. Alfred Morris should have been rostered in your league way before this week anyway. That's on you. All right, Justin writes in, has Mike Zimmer finally given up on the threats to bench Case Keenum for Teddy Bridgewater? I am banking on a Keenum to Thielen connection to win a fantasy title.
How are you going to bench a player
It's
who's
unbelievable.
competing for the MVP of the league right now? Okay, he may not be good enough to be named the official permanent starter of Minnesota, but he might just win the MVP of the NFL. He's been on fire. I don't know how or why you would bench Case Keenum at this point in time, short of there being some sort of injury that nobody hopes happens.
Right.
The guy's in the lineup, and he's going to stay in the lineup.
Yeah,
right now.
the word you're hearing from Minnesota, obviously, is, and you can see it on the field. He's been nothing short of terrific. By the way, maybe that's Mike Zimmer's way of keeping him playing high. Like, hey, you got to play for your job
Challenge
every
him,
week.
exactly. It's a Bill Parcells thing.
Yep.
Mike Zimmer, Bill Parcells close. You could see it being the psychological mindset there.
Either way, I think Keenum to Thielen will be very productive
Yes.
down the fantasy playoffs. All right, Jeffrey Miller 5 writes, and I have a first-round bye. How do I field the boy? Hashtag withdrawal.
I
think this is
I
hashtag
got
humble
a
brag.
first-round bye. I'm getting ready for next week already. I'm looking at all the matchups. I claim Blake Bortles on waivers because I got him and Goff, and Bortles has a great schedule down the stretch. So I'm already weighing what I want to do. Just start imagining, prepping yourself like a team in the playoffs. When they have a bye, they're thinking about the week ahead, Matthew. You got to think about ahead.
I have the first-round bye in a number of my playoff leagues as well, including this league, the show league right here, where Daniel's merely 6. He squeaked in. I have the first-round bye in this league. But that's what you do is you spend and you sit there and you try to make moves for week 15, for week 16. Don't just rest on your laurels and wait to see what happens. Always think ahead. Play chess, not checkers. All right, our next question comes in from Travis, who writes, do we play Kareem Hunt? Fantasy ride or died for me as well. He was my fantasy ride or die this season, or Latavius Murray. Who would you like this week? Of course, Kareem Hunt at home against Oakland, who struggled against the run, but Hunt's been brutal.
Yeah, he has been, but if I have Kareem Hunt, this is a week that you want to play him. Against the Raiders, they've been leaky. I know, look, you may go down again on Kareem Hunt. He may sink your chances again, but he has been good early on, and he's got an ideal matchup this week. And I think I'm willing to live by him one more time. And if he doesn't come through and you're eliminated, it's the way it goes. But you're not going to bench Kareem Hunt against the Oakland Raiders, I don't think.
Fair enough. I will say this. I have Latavius Murray ranked higher, which means the week I'm finally off Kareem Hunt, this will be the week he goes off. You're welcome, America. All right, Jason comes in here and asks, Adam, we all saw you do like 20-something push-ups last week. He wants to know, how many sit-ups can you do?
You know, listen, in all honesty, I can do a lot.
Can you really?
I can do way more sit-ups than I do push-ups. But I'm not going to.
You're not going to do it?
I mean,
it's the back. You're always on front camera. Like, are you worried you'll get your
I mean, what kind of sit-ups do we want to do?
You tell me. What do you do? Like, I'll tell you what I do. I'll tell you what sit-ups I do.
Here?
Is the kind of sit-ups I do is like, I'm like, hey, Schefter, do sit-ups. And then I watch you.
Like
one?
this?
Sure. There you go. What's proper? Like, I don't work out. 3, 4, 5. Schefter's going to keep doing this through the commercial break.
We're going to be here a long time, and the equipment's coming off me on the bottom. I'm just telling you.
That's fine. Still our blind resume. The Aaron Rodgers injury really hurt Jordy Nelson's fantasy value. He's only hit double-digit fantasy points in 5 games this year. Compare that to the Jaguars defense.
Wow.
A unit that's hit doubles almost twice as often as Jordy and found the end zone more often than he has as well. Rough year for Jordy, but what a year in Saxonville.
Seriously.
They've been unbelievable. All right, Secret Scroll, time now for our daily reminder. Don't be this guy. Today's video was sent in by Evan Geller. Now, the loser of his league had to get the classic I lost a bet haircut. Oh, wow. See, I could not be in this league.
No, you couldn't. You don't have enough hair.
That's right. See, you saw where I was going with that.
I see that.
That's a bad one. That's a tough one to live down.
Oh, they just did. I was like, well, he's just shaving his head. That's no big deal.
No, it's like a Friar Tuck thing going on.
Oh, man. That
he
guy
probably can't, like, go all bald. He's probably got to leave it like that, right?
That's tough.
Oh, yeah, and you put it out on the Snapchat as well?
He's not going to do well with the ladies.
Well, he's wearing a hat for the rest of the year.
Look how disappointing. Oh, and they did it in the back of